There's a lot of excitement and anticipation involved with putting a batch of homemade cookies in the oven. But there can also be a lot of disappointment when you pull those cookies out of the oven and they don't look like you expected. So I'm going to share a few tips about how to get the perfect chocolate chip cookie no matter what recipe you're using. First, you need to make sure your ingredients are fresh or in date. The most important ingredient to follow this is baking soda. Baking soda is only good for a short amount of time after it's opened, typically no more than 6 months, and that's if it's stored properly. To store baking soda properly, you need to keep it in an airtight container. I found the easiest option is to use a Ziploc bag and store the entire container inside that bag. You can also put it into an airtight container such as a mason jar or a storage container. Next, you need to properly measure your ingredients. If you're measuring by weight, be sure to use a kitchen scale that has been properly calibrated. Put it on a level surface and be sure to tare or zero out your kitchen scale in between each ingredient. If volume measurements are listed, you need to make sure you're using the correct measuring tool. If you're measuring liquids, use a liquid measuring cup. You're going to set this on a level surface and then view it from eye level. If it's not on a level surface, you could be holding it at an angle without realizing it, or if you don't view it at eye level, you could be over measuring or under measuring unintentionally. Next, if you're measuring dry ingredients, you need to use a dry ingredient measure. The proper way to measure dry ingredients is to scoop the ingredient from the original container into this, and then you take a flat utensil, such as the back of a knife, and level it across. You want to do that instead of scooping, because when you scoop, you are unintentionally compacting the ingredients, which gives you an incorrect measure. There is one ingredient that is typically packed, and that is brown sugar, and it will state it on the recipe if you should pack that brown sugar. Next, you need to make sure you chill the dough. Most recipes call for chilling the dough after you have mixed everything together, but I found even cookie recipes that don't list it as a step before baking, it seems to be beneficial for. My preferred method for chilling the dough is to pre-portion the dough onto a cookie sheet. And to do that, I use a cookie scooper. It's like an ice cream scooper, but smaller, and they come in multiple sizes. By pre-scooping the dough into the portioned balls, it chills faster and more evenly and makes it easier in between baking batches because your dough is already portioned. If you refrigerate the dough while it is all together into one, typically you have it in a bowl, then it is harder to scoop because the ingredients become harder, and then it also does not chill properly. The top layer and the sides can become chilled while the middle may still be room temperature. I've also found that the ideal chilling time, as long as you pre-portion your dough, is 30 minutes. The next step is to preheat your oven to whatever degree the recipe calls for. There are a lot of baked goods such as casseroles, roasted meats, roasted vegetables that you can put into a cool oven and bring up to temp while the recipe is in the oven. Cookies and baked goods are not one of those things. You need to preheat your oven because cookies have a short bake time and you want them to be at the ideal temperature the entire time. Excuse me. Next, I found that lining my cookie sheet with parchment paper or a silicone baking liner gives me the preferred texture for my cookie. If I use a pan spray, such as a PAM non-stick cooking spray, the tips of the cookie tend to be a lot crisper. If you prefer a crisper, lacy edge on your cookies, go for it. I prefer a chewy, even texture all throughout. I've also found that cooking directly on the pan makes it more difficult to clean and it causes faster spreading. You can reuse your parchment paper for each batch of the cookie. I would not reuse it over multiple days, but I have found that I can usually bake an entire recipe's worth of cookies with one piece of parchment paper being reused. When you take the cookies out of the oven, be sure to take them out when the edges are just barely starting to brown or darken. This is because you are going to let your cookies rest on the cookie sheet for 2 to 3 minutes before you transfer them to a cooling rack. So when you take them out of the oven, the bottoms are going to cook just a little bit longer while they're sitting on that pan. So if you wait until they are all the way cooked, then they will become overcooked while you're waiting to take them off the pan. But if you prefer an extra crisp cookie or a well done cookie, as some say, go ahead and leave it in the oven a minute or two longer. That leads me to my final step, which is to store the cookies in an airtight container until you're ready to enjoy them. Typically, cookies don't last long around here, but I will put any extra cookies in a Ziploc bag or an airtight mason jar until we are ready to eat them, typically later that day. But I hope you are able to utilize these tips to create the perfect chocolate chip cookie, and thank you for your time.